knows. All right, Jackie, we good? Green light? Okay. All right, so everybody knows we don't allow note takers in here because when we do breakout rooms, they destroy them and they don't work. So we decided not to let note takers in here, just FYI. Guys, I'm Raymond Scholseth. Debbie and I are partners on Agent Impact Group. We operate a handful of Facebook groups with over 1 million agents, an email list with just under 200,000 subscribers. We're both at Epic Realty, and we've been doing these coffees now for about 5 years. So thank you for being here, and thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to get right into it. We have one of our peers, Andrew Becker, with us. Andrew's team does 400 to 500 transactions a year. He recently joined us over at Epic. What we're going to talk about today is teams. And we're going to approach teams from a little bit different standpoint. We're going to talk about the 5 pillars of teams, but how it also applies to you as a solo agent with one or more, or a solo agent by themselves, or an actually big scalable team with what you're trying to do. What Andrew did is him and his partner, Amber, decided that they were going to build their own solution to their problems in the form of a CRM to make their process scalable. And that's how they got to 400 to 500 transactions a year. So what I'd like to do is pass the mic over to Andrew. Andrew, introduce yourself, and we're just going to get into it, guys. So we have plenty of time for Q&A.
Sure. Thank you, Raymond. And good morning, everyone. Awesome to see all these great people here. My name is Andrew Becker. I am in Alexandria, Virginia. Just to kind of expand on a little bit of my background, I started with my partner, Dan, way back in 2013 at Keller Williams in Arlington, Virginia. And we service the DMV, DC, Maryland, and Virginia. So a little tri-state bubble up here on the East Coast. We set out to grow a team from the start. That was always our vision and our mission for what we wanted to do. And ultimately, our goal was to leverage team members to not have to be in sales and not even have to run the operation. So although I still have a team, we do both retail buyers and sellers, and then we have a wholesale component as well. I have nothing to do with the team anymore. It runs and operates on its own. I haven't done sales in about 2 or 3 years, and that has afforded me the ability to do other things. But just we started at KW. We moved over to Sotheby's in 2017, 2018. Recently decided to come over to Epic and work with Ray and Debbie at that great brokerage. So that's a little bit of my background. Ray, did you want to go ahead and share the slides and we can go over the agenda for today?
Yeah, let's do it. That'd be fantastic. Do you want to share them or do you want me to share them?
If you can, that would be great.
Okay, sure. Pull them up. Guys, while we're sharing these slides, let us know if you own or operate a team or are part of a team in the chat. Just drop the team. Just write team. That's it. We'll keep it real simple for what we're doing.
I can't walk it out anymore.
All right, here we go.
It's going to stiffen up and be.
Down to your feet.
Make sure everybody's muted, guys.
Okay, just a little bit of a background, you guys, on what Billions is. When I started the team back in 2013, I was the operations guy. So it was my job and my responsibility to initiate, build, and maintain our tech stack. And believe me when I say I was on almost every major platform that you've probably heard of or might be using. And I just wanted a system that could really take the manual process out of it. And a lot of those systems out there were great and it did what we needed to do. But as I started to really fill my tech stack with these little nuances that saved us time and money, which we'll get into in a little bit later, I would hit some system limitation around functionality. And the solution was, get Zapier, the bridge to connect different softwares. And by the time, it was what it turned out to be, what would turn out to be the prototype for Billions. It was a centralized CRM, Zapier, and about 7 or 8 other software solutions, which was a nightmare to maintain, pay for. And when it broke, it was super stressful. So Billions kind of took out the need for third-party disparate or disconnected solutions. And it's just a single source record where you can operate everything you need to operate your real estate business. So that's just a little background on what Billions is at a high level. But if we can jump to the next slide, this is what we're going to be going over today together. And please, if you do have any questions, please send them over in the chat, and we'll do our best to try to answer them as I go through. So what we're going to be, oh, Ray, if you could go back just real quick. I just wanted to touch on the flow here. So we're going to start with consistent lead generation, and then we're going to kind of go into the operations of systems and processes, having clear roles, responsibilities for team members, an operating system, and then accountability and metrics. But nothing from 2 to 5 on this agenda matters if you do not have number 1. You can have the best systems, the best people in the world, but if you do not have leads, that is going to be a big problem for you and your real estate business. So I always like to just touch on the importance of lead gen. Kind of like payroll, when you do have a team, it's tough sometimes to get it out, but it has to go out every 2 weeks. Lead gen just has to roll, or you're going to be in a world of trouble here. Ray, did you want to add anything about the agenda, or should we just hop right into here?
No, we can hit the agenda. And guys, like Andrew said, if you have questions, just drop them in there. And full transparency, this is a brand new slideshow for us that we put together, and we're testing it out on you guys. So we want to know if it works, what you think, if you like the flow. We also tried to keep it really simple so we could have more conversation, which is the basis of lead generation. So anytime we have a special guest on here or we do a training, we're trying to make sure we're teaching something and giving you guys tangible action steps to go and do the thing we're talking about. Because more often than not, I know I've done it hundreds of times. I've shown up to webinars, trainings, coaching courses, whatever, and there's a lot of theory covered, but there's no action steps. Without action steps, we can't build our business. So we always like to make sure that we're packing in as much as possible in, 45 to 60 minutes. By the time we get to where we're at, it's already 9:12. So just keep that in mind. We want to give you action steps and tangible things to actually go and do the thing we're talking about. All that being said, let's get into lead gen, Andrew.
Right. So again, almost nothing else matters where you are, what team you have, what tech stack, unless you have leads. I would love to hear from everyone. If you could tell me your top 3 lead sources, where you are generating business from in the chat. I just want to kind of engage, where you are getting your business from. And I'll kind of just start and talk about from my early years as, a brand new real estate agent with a partner with ambitions and dreams and a vision of building a team, but no capital, right? So that's what a lot of people struggle with today. And we've had a lot of conversations around this. So what do you do in the early life cycle of your business as either a solo agent or someone on a team? And what we did personally is we started with obviously the sphere, right? The people we know, and we let them know we're in real estate now, and we just tried to keep touching them as best as we could. But we really wanted to be the team that would wind up purchasing leads for our long-term vision. So what we did to start was we held open houses, we walked the neighborhood, did all the kind of things that you would do when you have a limited budget. And then as we grew, those kind of snowballed into bigger and better things. But the challenge for us was having the tech to help us keep up with that flow, right? So Ray became a lead, but then before I knew it, I had 10 other Rays, and then 20, and then 30, and then 40, and it kind of became this huge thing. So it was very tough to kind of keep up with Ray number 1 versus, the 200, 300, 400th person in the database. So what we knew is we had to be able to convert each and every single lead to the best of our ability. And what we also did is we tried to make the most of each individual business transaction or listing that we had. So we did our best to get a listing, hold it open, collect information, and then we tried to transition that into get buyers. If it didn't work for them, we had other properties inside of our brokerage. So we really tried to start small And now kind of flash forward to today, our top three, and I'd like to go through kind of a couple of these when I'm kind of done telling you what we're doing today. But our top three today are: we spend about $11,500 a month on PPC, so Google Ads. We target sellers who we believe or think they have a good urgent need to sell their home, and we can either buy it from them through a direct purchase contract, or we can pivot over to a listing. And then we're doing direct mail. We spend about 10 to 20K, depending on the season and what month we're in, on direct mail. And then we still do our sphere and open houses and all that great stuff too. So I just want to kind of see cold email, social media, referral partners. Does anyone, can you in the chat, if you do pay for leads, can you just write paid? Does anybody on this call pay for leads right now? Okay, cool. In our model, our specific team model, I'll kind of touch on that just so this makes a little bit more sense. But we knew we had to have a consistent lead flow. And once we got to the point where we had enough capital to do so, that was the bloodline, and that was the lifeblood of our company. And how our company works today, in case you're thinking of how you want to organize your team, is when Dan and I were running it, we were kind of at the top, and we paid for marketing and kind of oversaw the sales team, and then paid for all of the overhead as well. Leads would flow in, and we would have inside sales agents, or better known as appointment setters, work those leads and set appointments for our agents who just went on appointments. Our agents on our teams didn't have to follow up with pipeline or make 500 cold calls. They would just kind of wait to get appointments put onto their calendars, and then they would do their due diligence, figure out the best way to convert, and then they would convert either a buyer or a seller. Once it went under contract, we had a transaction management, marketing, listing team kind of see it from contract to close. And then all the while we had lead managers kind of overseeing the entire operation. And then we just kind of did that on repeat. So that drove and allowed us to scale. But it wasn't as easy as what I just described. And we'll kind of hop into how we were able to do that at a high volume, high transaction level. Ray, did you want to add anything else with lead gen before we kind of go into systems? I think you're muted.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, I want to stop the share here real quick and talk about lead generation in general. So Andrew, if you're running a team and you have these 5 key pillars, it's always the Pareto principle, right? 80-20. Would you say that 80% of a team's budget, a team's resources, a team's attention or time should be spent on lead gen over and above everything else? Like, what is your rule about lead generation when you have multiple people part of an ecosystem trying to drive business? And I know we're going to get into roles and responsibilities, but my experience has been from manufacturing, from real estate, is that it is the 80-20 rule, right? So if I have 100 people working for me, 20% of them are producing 80% of the results, right? It doesn't mean you don't need the other 80 people, but I guess where I'm going with this is I want to know that concentrated effort, right? With what you guys have built in your experience, what does it actually look like?
Yeah, that's a really good question and a great concept. So early on, before we had the systems and the processes in play, honestly, the majority of my focus was on remembering to follow up with people about leads, about appointments, about different, statuses of our signed clients. Over time, though, as I made that more automated, our lead gen became like top. We focus on that. And that's why I had mentioned when Dan and I kind of built this team and leveraged other team members to set the appointments, to go on the appointments, to oversee the contract to close transaction, coordination. That allowed us to leverage all of those awesome and amazing team members to solely focus on marketing, right? And marketing meant lead gen. Before that, though, it took up a lot of time having to go into our CRM, to go into, text messages and kind of things were, it was chaos, right? We were just trying to close as many deals as we can before we really had a tangible operating system in play here. And then once we were able to kind of solve for that operating system, it really freed our time, to be perfectly honest. We bought back our time by investing in our solution and what we built out in terms of automated technology. And we were able to focus the majority of our time on lead gen. And that's what Dan does today. He's still operating the team. I get, monthly updates on what's going on, but he can just focus on that. And then that also allows him to do other stuff as well. So yes, I think once you get to that point, and you're, if you do have the dream or, the vision to build that team, ultimately that's where our goal needed to go in order to kind of continue to run this operation.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that. I'll jump back in the slides and we can keep going through it. All right, moving on.
We can, so this is just one thing that I wanted to show. So one of the little nuance automation that our system does is it automatically tells you when things happen from a time a new lead comes in for an appointment, when you sign someone or close someone. Our system would automatically notify us through, these are screenshots of what we call our summary emails. So this was also another great way for us to buy back our time as team leaders, because we didn't have to monitor the CRM or really anything else to know like when stuff came in or when things were moving. It would automatically just say, Ray goes to our PPC page, he submits his information, it would say new PPC lead, Ray S, and here's all the information about it. So our team leader would be able to use that information in real time to, speed to lead sometimes is everything, especially for PPC, if you're familiar with PPC. And we'll talk about a little automation as we go into systems and processes. But this is one of the things that really made my life easier when I was running the sales team. When an agent would go on an appointment and I needed to know the outcome of the appointment, I would get that email directly to me in real time because of the way we set up our operating system. So let's hop into the next slide, Ray, and just talk about systems and processes. So here's kind of like the basic overview of what I had in my head and what I tried to do. And I use the analogy a lot of a burger joint, right? So if anyone wanted to start a burger joint, they could source the patties, figure out where the building needed to be, get an architect, set up the kitchen, hire the team, or you can just go and like franchise the McDonald's, right? And have all of that operating system, basically the blueprint given to you tomorrow. And that is what we tried to set up for anyone on the team and anyone that joined the team. So the biggest issue that we had before we had our systems and our what are called standard operating procedures or SOPs or playbooks was that Andrew would do set an appointment one way, Ray would set it another, Jackie would set it another. Everyone was kind of trying to do the same thing, but not really. And it was leading to unorganized chaos where if something broke, it was so everyone is doing everything on their own to that level where we wouldn't really be able to audit what happened or figure out what happened. So we put in SOPs, or what we call playbooks in our company, because we wanted 80% of what needed to happen 100% of the time, each and every single time. So everyone knew what would happen when an appointment was set, these 10 things. And our system auto triggered those 10 things and told the 5 other people to, Ray, go do this, Andrew, go do this, Jackie, go do this. And it was just repeatable, predictable steps. And before we had a system like that, we had a lot of, Ray, we talk about this a lot, revenue leakage, right? So I'll give you a little bit of a side story here. So I think the year was about 2017, and we wound up closing about 3.6 million in gross revenue that year. And we were very high volume. We had a lot of leads, a lot of appointments happening, but we weren't really tracking conversion rates of agents, what was happening to the leads at that point. And our agents would come back to us and say, hey, I didn't sign that. The lead source is bad. The script is bad for appointment setting, those kind of things. And, we need to redo everything. And we're like, wait a second. Let's start tracking lost deal revenue. And we hired a VA in the Philippines to start to look at our MLS. It's called Bright MLS where we are. And he would mirror or match it up against the leads that we had in our system. And we wound up, after he was done, we wound up losing more than we closed. And we found out, because we didn't have systems and processes in play, our agents were going on appointments, not signing them, and then doing very little to no follow-up, because in our process, in our system, it just meant they would get more appointments the next week, right? And then they almost became complacent of, I'm just going to get another appointment. If I don't sign it, it's not that big of a deal. But it was a huge revenue leak. And at that point, we had an 11.6 profit margin. We hired a coach to come in for an all day, and he kind of spotted this out. And we put conversion tracking in play, and we made a rule that you had to convert at a certain level before you could get appointments. And then we went from 11.6 to about 35.5 profit margin by just implementing that one small change here. And this is the system that we put in. So at each and every point in the phases of a real estate transaction, which in the United States, it's pretty much the same no matter where you go, you get a lead, you follow up with them to ultimately set an appointment, whether that's in person or virtual. You sign them as a buyer or a listing, or in some cases, like I mentioned earlier, we pivoted into investor type leads too. And we have a pretty big wholesale operation in combination with our retail. So we sign them to a direct purchase contract or a buyer agreement or a listing agreement, goes under contract or an escrow, and then you close it out. So the way we have our system set up is when a new lead comes in, it automatically triggers certain tasks that have to happen with certain teammates. We have automation around what we call touch plans. So if Ray came in and I couldn't get him on the phone, I could put him on a can't reach lead touch plan, for example. It'll send him text messages, emails, even direct mail, and task my team to call them. When an appointment is set, all you have to do is you click on the appointment button and you fill in the who, what, where, when, and why. And it automatically sends that summary email to the team leaders. It puts it on the calendar and it moves it into the appointment stage. So now we're tracking, and we're going to talk about analytics at the end, Ray. So I'll kind of hold off, but now we're tracking that another Google PPC appointment was just set by Andrew, the appointment setter. And we follow that kind of streamlined workflow all the way through. So everyone knows what to do, when to do it, and how to do it without having to remember when you set an appointment, oh, go update this field, go put it on the calendar, go track this date. So as much as we could automate that process and take the human manual steps out of it, we did. And that's kind of what allows us to kind of scale and do as much business as we do, because we're not wasting time inside of the platform. So that's the entire client journey that we have inside of Billions. Ray, did I miss anything here? I want to make sure that I'm covering everything.
Yeah, that was solid. The only thing that I want to add is that I see a lot of people, companies, agents, mortgage professionals try to kind of build the system as they're going. And we have to adopt a quote from Stephen Covey where it's begin with the end in mind. And if we begin with the end in mind, knowing what the end result is and can work backwards, your life becomes easier when you're looking at systems and processes. That doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. That doesn't mean it's going to work. That doesn't mean it's not going to change, but it's a good place to start. So just as a simple example, when Andrew and I were putting these slides together, we're like, well, what is the result that we want, right? And we wanted people, you guys, to understand these 5 pillars. And then we wanted to teach on those 5 pillars. That doesn't mean you can just do this overnight. You have to build one pillar at a time. The same way airplanes take off at an airport, one at a time. right? In any given time, there's over 1 million people up in the air, but they all didn't get there at the same time. They're getting there sometimes every 30 seconds or every minute from different airports around the world. But if you approach building your systems and processes of implementing and doing one at a time, knowing that you're on the right path towards the end goal, your life will be a lot easier and this will be a lot less painful of a process.
Right. And one thing I'll add, because we did touch on like SOPs and playbooks, we have a rule in our company, and I do this in billions religiously. Any single time we have to do any action item, whether that's making coffee or onboarding a new customer, the first question, and this is a culture thing that I ask, and I've kind of trained everyone to self-answer, is do we have a playbook for that? We call them billions playbooks. And a playbook is essentially just what has to happen and why, like what's the purpose, and then here are the steps to make it happen. So if I have a playbook of, doing a Google PPC campaign from scratch, I will ask the team, do we have a Google PPC playbook? If the answer is no, one starts and gets implemented immediately. And we use Google Workspace. All these playbooks are live, so we don't have to worry about version control either. So everybody on the team gets access to them, and they're separated by department. So we have marketing, sales, for billions. I'll touch on marketing, sales, onboarding, product, those kind of things. So what we do, and what makes it very easy for anyone coming into the system, is we use a couple different products. So Workspace to house our playbook library with every single playbook we've ever had. And then we use Loom and Scribe. So if anyone is familiar with both, that's great, but I'll kind of just touch on what they are. Loom is a video recording software that you can record your monitor. So we will record whatever process we're doing 3 times, and we will talk through it. So whoever is watching it can pick up on the little nuances. We also use something called Scribe. If anyone is familiar with making a step-by-step tutorial of different steps and using screenshots and then copying and pasting, Scribe alleviates that. You turn on Loom and you turn on Scribe at the same time, and everything is recorded, everything is nice and organized, and we throw that into the playbook. And then we cover high level what needs to happen checklists for kind of cute quality checking, whatever it is. So instead of me, Andrew, having to train Ray on everything we do in marketing, the first thing he does is he goes to the playbook library and watches all the playbooks. Or if he needs to know how to create a Google PPC campaign, he just goes and finds it and pops it open. And then he's able to take it 80–90% of the way just by following those playbooks. So one just kind of backstory of why we felt like this was so important is because personally, I like reading and learning about successful CEOs and company leaders who have scaled to revenues beyond our wildest dreams. And the number one common theme that I picked up on was every single one of those leaders had playbooks, because that allows you to scale. That allows you to bring on people that can just jump in and start doing what they need to do, which rolls into our next pillar around roles and responsibilities. So one of our vision was to have compartmentalized roles, AKA departments, on our team. So we have appointment setters whose sole responsibility is to answer the phones, follow up with the pipeline, and follow a certain script on the team to vet or qualify said appointments for our agents to then go on. So when an ISA on our team sets an appointment and fills out an appointment form, the leadership team gets a notification through that summary email that I described before. And it says, Andrew just set an appointment with Ray. It's a Google PPC lead at 123 Main Street. And here are all the notes, the pertinent details. It's tomorrow at 6 p.m. And then we decide, or the team leaders decide, I should say, who on the team should be going on that appointment. So we officially assign said appointment to an actual agent on the team. And that does a couple things in our system. It puts it on their calendar. it emails them that, hey, hey, Andrew, you have an appointment with Ray tomorrow. But then because of the operating system that we have in set up here, the agent is no longer needed. It's no longer needed for the agent to call the appointment setter, because in our operating system, we have what's called Connect, as you see here on the right. And that allows for omni-channel communications to happen, which means we can call out inbound and outbound call from our platform. We can receive text from our platform. We can send direct mail. We can even send email. It's bi-directionally synced. So if I send an email out of our billions, it shows up in my Gmail and vice versa. So now the agents on our team don't have to get Andrew the appointments that are off the phones, because we don't want them off the phones, because that's going to be a waste of time and that's going to hurt our revenue generating activities. But our agents can then bring themselves up to speed by listening to every call, reading every text, looking at every single piece of direct mail that was ever sent, and then read every email. So they're bringing themselves up to speed on what happened on the appointment, getting ready for the appointment, and then coming back and saying, hey, hey team, here's what happened on that appointment. So that touches on a little bit of the inbound, outbound connect, what we call, inside of our platform, but that saves seconds, minutes, hours, days over the course of the year for our agents and for our team to operate effectively and efficiently. Ray, I know I keep asking you, but I don't want to miss anything here.
It's perfect, man. I love it. I think we're in a good flow. So guys, one of the things that I've done historically, as I've built a bunch of different businesses in a bunch of different vertical markets, is I'll literally sit down with a blank piece of paper and a pencil, and I'll draw a circle and I'll write me. And it's the hub and spoke theory, right? So then I start drawing lines up to the things that are on my plate, what I'm doing. Then I draw lines to things I need to do, right? Like this massive to-do list that's always in our head. And then I start drawing lines on what I don't want to do. And then the first thing I do is look at what I don't want to do and how could I eliminate, delegate, or automate. Then I look at the to-do list and I ask myself, what actually is going to move the needle in my business if I can do? And usually 50% or more go away. Then I look at what I'm actually doing and ask, what is the 20% that I'm doing that's getting 80% of the efforts? And then I cross off the things that aren't doing that. And that helps me kind of systematize what's going on with me. And for me, regardless of, again, whether you're a solo agent or you're running a team, you want to build a team, or you have people around you, the average amount of people in a real estate transaction is 12 to 15. Multiple agents, lenders, title companies, home inspectors, appraisers, right? You are leading people if you're in real estate, regardless of what you think. You are a leader if you are a real estate agent, broker, MLO, okay? You are guiding people. Part of our job is to make sure that the right things are getting done. So I encourage everybody to go through this exercise and look at how you're actually operating. And that's my point, is to take an hour today or tomorrow, just brainstorm, drop it on paper, and look at how you're operating. And as we go through these pillars, just choose one to start improving with what you're actually doing inside of your business. All right, I'll get off my soapbox and we can move on to the next one.
Yeah, Ray, that's a good point. I'll just expand on one other thing here. These little nuanced items that you have to do as you're thinking about growing and scaling, if that's what you do ultimately want to do. The way I approach this is kind of what Ray just said, and I would make a list and be like, I don't want to do this, or I really like doing that, those kind of things. But I also thought, what can my technology do that maybe I don't like doing, but I don't also want another team member having to do it as well, because it's just an administrative, low hanging fruit kind of thing. And I'll tell you just one example of this. But our platform is kind of like chock full of all these little nuanced things. But one of the biggest things that we struggled with was deadline or date management, for example. So you ratify a contract, and most of the time, and you're lucky if you don't have this, but most of the time there are, 10 to 15 different dates that needed to be tracked. And we hired someone to do that, but it was they would receive a contract from one of our agents, and there'd be an appraisal or a home inspection or an EMD due date. And that particular team member's only job was to go out and set reminders on calendars, for example. And each individual date had to be added manually. And then they had to, invite multiple people sometimes to multiple calendars, and it took forever. We added it up and it was like something like 2,000 plus hours a year, given how long, because we timed them. So one little thing that we did to automate that is each individual date in our platform, down to the EMD or the appraisal, you can set what's called a reminder and say, hey, every single time the appraisal date deadline is populated, I want it automatically going to Ray's calendar and Andrew's. And 3 days before that, I want a notification via an email saying, hey guys, like this appraisal is coming up in 3 days. But for the EMD, I only want it going to Jackie's calendar. And then I want Jackie to be reminded the day it's due, so she can then reach out to the title company, or the attorney, however you do your closings in your state, to confirm. So those little things, not only did we think about from an action item, that's something that needed to be done from a person perspective, but also, do we even need someone doing this? And that saved us a tremendous amount of time. So that's one of the little things we implemented, and everyone loved it because they didn't have to worry about calendar management. So I just wanted to talk about that for a second. We'll jump kind of in. I know we've been talking about the operating system kind of writ large. I do want to be a little mindful of time. Let's go to the next slide, Ray, and then I'd love to just talk about analytics and then kind of open up for Q&A if that works. Okay. So again, what we kind of set up, all this stuff around automation and having the system do things that we ultimately wanted to take off the plate of people, from lead gen all the way down to signing a new client or kind of overseeing our whole operation. That almost didn't mean anything either until we did this. So I mentioned before, our agents kind of got complacent around, it doesn't matter if I sign someone, I can follow up with them once, but then I'm just going to get more appointments next week. The second we started, and Ray, if you can go to the slide 12, the second we automatically started tracking where things were for us without having to update anything, is when our business really took off and we closed that revenue leakage. So again, this is just an example. Our platform specifically has about 8 different dashboards with 135 different reports, KPIs, etc. Every single thing we needed to know to run our business like a business. And I think running your business like a business is the most important thing. You kind of almost don't think of it that way at first, but once the aha moment, the light bulb went off, and I said, I need to start tracking my numbers. I need to start knowing what is working. I'm paying $10,000 a month on Google PPC, but how much revenue is coming back in? And at that point, I really had no idea. So we just started building all these different reports on these dashboards, and we got the system to pretty much just proactively tell us what was happening. But the most important, biggest change in our business came when we started actually tracking what people were producing. So I'll use you again, Ray, as an appointment setter. Let's say I'm spending $5,000 a month on you to set appointments. I had no clue if you were making us money or not. So by following our standard systems and procedures through that workflow I kind of outlined earlier, I was automatically now tracking that Ray set 10 appointments this week and 1 the next week, and then 10 and then 10. But he was also bringing in on average $50,000 in revenue a month. So I could not only calculate the return on investment of our lead sources, but also the people on our team. Because as you start to fill in your team, that overhead is going to start to creep up on you. And that's going to be a real expense that you have to pay or put out every single month. So you want to know earlier. The earlier you know who and what is working for you, the better you're going to be able to pivot and make those changes. Another example is, I'll just use a customer example. They sent out 12 postcards, one every single month. And I said, cool, where did your business come from? And they really didn't have any idea. And then when we actually dove a little bit deeper, it turned out that only like 2 or 3 of their postcards actually returned any money, but they were still paying for the other 9 without really knowing that it wasn't even bringing money back. Ultimately, as a team owner and a team leader, you need to be able to get to the point where you say, I spend $1 and X number of dollars comes back into our platform. So what a system that's set up like this kind of affords you with the ability to do is say, okay, this quarter we closed 10 deals, but 8 of them came from direct mail. Of those 8, 7 came from this particular postcard. It happened to have Ray's picture on it. And then you put a fence around that and you do it again, and it allows you to A/B split test in real time. Also with people, this quarter, Ray returned X, Andrew returned Y. Andrew didn't return any money. You're having performance, you're putting them on a performance program quicker. The intent and the idea here, you guys, is to catch it quick so you can make changes and pivot if you need to. So that running your business like a business, and also you look at like Fortune 500, Fortune 1000s, one of the biggest things those leaders always say, and why I got really into the data and analytics piece is, you have to know your business's numbers. You have to treat this serious because it is a business, right? For most of you, I'm assuming it's your livelihood. So you want to know. You don't want to shoot from the hip. You want that, sniper rifle approach to whatever it is you're doing, and having a system in play. And if you don't have a system like we do today, just start tracking anywhere. Tracking anything anywhere is better than never tracking anything anywhere, right? So I know we're kind of coming up on time here. Ray, I'll give you another, do you have anything else you wanted to add there? And then if you'd like, we can open it up for Q&A.
Yeah, let's just open it up for Q&A. We only got 13
Okay.
minutes left, so I'd like to, if anyone has comments, questions, experiences you want to share, something you're struggling with, guys, we would love to hear from you and talk about it. Just unmute, have at it, raise your hand, whatever you want to do. If you want me to start with a leading question, who is looking or has an active team? Anybody here? Where did Jessica go? Jessica Huber, are you still around?
And it looks like Jillian just started a team.
Okay, Jillian, can we talk? The Home Me group, I love it. Are you able to talk? I'd love to ask you some questions.
I don't think she's
Okay, not right now.
Right
Okay,
now.
all right. So let's go down this path. Andrew, I think there's a lot of solo producing agents that think about starting a team as the next step. What would be your advice?
Have a plan in play to know where your next hire is going to be. And I think if capital or money is not prevalent or something that you're worried about right now, what the first hire that I ever made personally was an executive assistant offshore, much more economical. But I needed to take the little administrative pieces of what I was doing every day that I said, hey, can somebody else be doing this? For example, like my email and my calendar. I hired someone, I made a playbook, I put it, this is what I want you to do and how I want you to do it. And I never even look at emails anymore. His name is Jonas. Jonas is responsible for looking at every single new unread email first. And then once he reads it, he kind of figures out, we have rules for newsletters. We have rules for customer emails. We have rules for all different kinds of emails. And I trained him on that, but you'd be surprised how much time you do waste on going through emails. And if you can, you can free up that time to do other revenue generating activities. That is how you you build and you snowball. Like instead of answering emails, maybe you're hosting a client event party or doing more open houses or door knocking or whatever it is you're trying to do for lead gen. So that's kind of where we started. And then we got to the point where we were able to generate so many, we were at capacity. And then what we did next is we actually went out and said, hey, real, agent out there, here's our calendars, here's what we do. Our ultimate goal or our business model was to provide not leads, but appointments for agents. So that was kind of our value proposition, right? And we said, here's our calendars. How about we just start filling your calendar? And then we did it with one. And then we said, when you get to about 80% capacity, let us know. And then we hired another person. At that particular point, we were all acting as our own appointment setters. But then once we got to the other point, we hired Peter, our first appointment setter. And then he came in and we just kind of did the same thing. So as we got the capital, as we got kind of figured stuff out, we hired for the appropriate role and then came up with SOPs, made sure everyone knew what they were doing and what their roles, and ultimately how it led to what we were trying to do in terms of goals for the entire company, and kind of just never looked back from there. And then along the way, as I mentioned, if I said, hey, can our tech stack do this better than me? We would figure out a way, and we made the investment to make it happen. So that's what we that's where we started, and that's where we kind of ended up.
Thanks, Andrew. Sarah Clark asked, I'm a single agent with an assistant, but does pretty much everything. Assistant follows my list for her. What are the first steps?
First steps in terms of where do you think first steps means here?
Yeah, Sarah, can you chat?
Yeah, hi. Okay, so I have an assistant that does a lot of, like marketing and gifts for clients and things like that, but she is very much a list follower. And I'm trying to figure out the best way to, I guess, I mean, I don't know if a transaction coordinator is the best way to get started to leverage. I would like to not be working all the time, and I don't think that she's the kind of person that would think outside of the box other than the list. And so
Sure.
I'm not quite sure where to start, like what to give her to do. And also if it's a transaction coordinator, if it's a virtual assistant. But I guess the concept of a virtual assistant is so out there for me. Like, who are these people and how do they know what I want? Like, I've never really explored that before. So I'm not sure.
Sure.
Sarah, can I jump in on that? I have really strong feelings about the whole virtual assistant thing. Virtual assistants are fantastic. The problem that I see is I see people thinking, oh, this is very affordable, I should hire an assistant. The problem is you don't know what their roles are, what their responsibilities are, or what the result is of their efforts. So going back to, hey, where is my attention going, right? Because we can't control time. We all have the same time. We need time management because we can't control our attention, whether we're distracted with kids or we're distracted with coworkers or we're distracted on TikTok. It doesn't matter. That's what is consuming our attention. We see it all day within ourselves, within our family, within our children, within our network. So my question to you is, if you're going to just draw this mind map, let's call it, of, hi, I'm Sarah, this is what I'm doing every day. What is the low-hanging fruit that you would be able to train somebody to actually execute for you? That is the first thing. Is it creating graphics and social media posts in Canva? Is it dotting I's and crossing T's on, client paperwork and contracts? Is it creating a punch list of, hey, every time I get a transaction, this is the way I run my business flow. Somebody needs to make sure that I'm not missing a beat with every deal that I'm doing, right? Brainstorm that list, put that together. And then the question becomes is, who is that person for that role? So you can identify their personality, what their strengths are, what skill set do they have? So looking at your assistant that you have today, whoever this person is, what is their skill set? What are their strengths? And do they play to support your business? Because if not, then that's the wrong person, right? So if you're busy and you're producing and you're like, I don't want to run this marathon forever, I need help, you need to identify the things that you can move off your plate depending upon your personality too, right? Like, how controlling are you? How much are you willing to give? Are you going to give somebody enough rope to hang themselves? Or are you going to make sure that you're choosing the right person and giving them tools to create the result you want? But it's all result driven, right? Like, what is the outcome? If I hire person X and this person takes over my social media and checks my email and verifies my appointments on my schedule and manages my Calendly and makes sure my MLS is getting paid, like, what is the result that you want to happen with this person? If you can identify that, it makes it a lot easier to put that person in place. And it does two things. Number one, you're not wasting your time because you're setting them up for success. Number two, you're not going to be disappointed unless they literally aren't doing their job, right? And you understand what that actually looks like. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that's kind of my mindset around VAs, assistants, and that kind of thing. But it is the right first hire. If you are busy producing and you're making things happen and you're like, what's next? Yes, an assistant, absolutely, to give you more time to do what you're good at. Like, that's the goal before you either bring other people in or have a buyer's agent or have a marketing person. That type of thing is being able to leverage and maximize your time. So you're doubling and tripling down on your strengths to drive revenue for your business.
Right.
So are you literally giving them your email address to go like access to all of your email and or like
There
is
has to
that
be
the
that level of trust, Sarah. And the answer for me personally is yes.
okay?
And it was kind of scary, I'll admit, at first, because you never know, right? But if you want to grow and you want to scale, at certain points, you're going to have to relinquish the responsibility of A and then B and then C, whatever that is for you. Let me ask you just real quick. You have this assistant kind of doing a lot of items for you today, right? And then you mentioned transaction coordination. Are you handling all of your transaction contract to close, checklists right now?
Mm-hmm.
So you're doing it. I think there's kind of two options here, or actually three. You can either continue doing it, right? What we did early on, Sarah, is we paid, I think at the time it was like $3.95 per file, and we had some third-party transaction coordinator named Jamie do it. And then once we got to the point, we brought it in-house. But we use that again. We made a playbook, and this is something that you might be able to do today. Open up a sheet and write down everything you do for transaction coordination. Talk to your assistant. Him or her might not want to do it. Say, hey, I have this new responsibility that I kind of want to pass along. Would you be interested in doing it? If you have a checklist minded person, they're going to be phenomenal at a TC. I'll just say that right off the bat. The one caution for you is you don't want to give your assistant, just start piling on stuff and start piling and piling and piling. If you don't have a lot of volume and it's manageable for them, work with, setting 2 to 3 hours aside for transaction management purposes on their calendar. Get them a little organized around time management, that kind of thing. If it's a lot of volume, maybe you say, you use it as a way to move them up in your company. Hey, do you want to oversee contract to close operations now? And then potentially think about replacing her as your administrative assistant doing, those lower level items. So there's really different things, but I think the main thing would be for you, because you're the brain trust right now around what you and, the Sarah real estate agent does for contract to close. Start just throwing your ideas and what you do. So if you did want to have them move into it, you're not like struggling or coming up with it off the top of your head. Have a detailed, like, this is what you will be doing. Would you be comfortable with it? Oversee the first 5 transactions with that person and say, hey, I think you're good. And then boom, you just got rid of transaction coordination. And that's what you can think of in every single different, compartment or department, whatever, of, hey, I don't want to order signposts anymore. I just don't want to do it. I hate it, whatever. Come up with a playbook, say, go here, call this number, order the sign, give them this, and then pass that along to somebody else. And then you're free to do all those other things that you are good at and want to do. So any single time, or every single time, I should say, there's something that you're like, man, I'm so tired of doing it. That's the approach I would take. Also, just to kind of tap into virtual assistants, I know we're coming up on time. I have a pre-filter, like we got all of our VAs offshore from Upwork. We used Craigslist back in the day. I don't even know if anyone uses Craigslist anymore, but Upwork is where we are now. I can send this out too, but we almost give them a pre-filtered test that says, if you even want to be considered, the subject line of your email has to be verbatim this. You need to do these 5 things, shoot a 3-minute video saying, answering these 5 questions. 98% of the garbage will filter themselves out. And then you're not having to go through 100 resumes, you're going through maybe 5. And then you kind of whittle it down that way. So as you can get more efficient that way as well, you're going to save a ton of money. Because trust me, I've wasted for a VA interviewing like 30 people. And I was like, why the hell am I doing this? This took 2 weeks to do. I put that system into play where it's like, if you can't follow instructions on applying for this position, you're not going to be good. And that is a huge red flag if they're just like, I'm good, hire me, here's my resume. You're like, did you even read the application? So just little things like that will save you a boatload of time moving forward.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks, Andrew. Jackie, I see your hand up and I know we got to wrap it up.
Well, yeah, we have to wrap it up. So let me do the admin, and then I do have a question for Andrew if anybody wants to hang around a little longer. But so everyone, if you haven't done it already, please put your contact information in the chat. Everyone saves that for the most part. And so it's a good reason to have your contact info in there. If for some reason you can't save it, Danny, wave your hand so everybody knows who you are. Yeah. Danny is our chat saver guru. So if you can't save it, then you can go ahead and just say, please send it to me and Danny will get it to you. Okay. Before we wrap up, then, did anyone else have any other questions for Andrew today? If you do, just raise your virtual hand and we'll get to it. And if ever some people need to go, we understand. But we'll stay on for a few more minutes if it's okay with Andrew and Ray. Anyone have questions?
No, let's wrap it up, Jackie.
Hey,
Give
good.
everybody their
Okay,
day
well,
back.
we're all done then. Yeah, Andrew, I just want to make one comment. I love the idea of just kind of figuring out what you do all day. Like, I mean, in the proverbial me, what I do all day. Because if I'm trying to write a playbook, then I guess I could really start pretty easy and just, figure out like, how long am I spending on emails? What is my process for that? I mean, just being aware of what you're spending your time on in a playbook fashion is probably worth its weight in gold for today. Never mind trying to teach someone else, but just figuring out what you do for yourself before you try to put it on to someone else. So I think that is an amazing process to start, even if you just do a little bit at a time. Right.
That makes your job easier too, because you'll know what to do and you're doing the same thing over and over and not having to reinvent the wheel every time.
Exactly. Well, I really found it very, very helpful. I hope everyone else did as well. Invite your friends, let them know we have this great information every Thursday at 10 Eastern Standard Time. It's in the Facebook group, Real Estate Agent Referral Marketing and Networking Marketing Tips. And I know you're all part of that, but go ahead and tell other realtors about it and make sure that you register and come to our meetings. We always have interesting topics. And if you need any additional help, Ray, Andrew, myself, Walter, and Debbie are always available to help you. Okay. So I hope you all have a very productive week and we'll see you next Thursday.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Enjoy your day.
everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Andrew.
See ya.